You have to realize that the likelihood of finding your one and only on an app is probably not very high, and you just have to look at it as part of your menu of your diet. Hi, this is Mike Balaban. Welcome to another episode of BAMMER Talks. Today, I'd like to cover the topic of social media and social media strategy for gay men. In this era when we all meet online and almost never meet in person for the first time, how should you go about trying to meet someone? It's pretty overwhelming, even daunting, to go on the different sites that are available and try to meet someone. Almost always, inevitably, the expectation is that you're going to have sex before anything else happens. And not everyone, certainly not me, it wants to operate that way. So what do you do? Well, let's take a look. Until about 2005, most people still met in person at gay bars, at social events, at, gay AA meetings, at gay athletic leagues, etc. But with the ubiquity of the social media apps and the hookup meetup apps that have become popular and commonplace in the last decade, it's rare for people to meet anymore in person. Usually what happens is people go on Grindr. That's the preeminent social media gay male hookup app. And it tends to be for a younger crowd. It has a little bit of attitude. It's pretty expensive. And that's a kind of a starter place for a lot of people. Then there is Scruff, which is for more of a scruffy, bearded, hairy, bearish, sometimes overweight, older group. Again, there's a wide range, but if I were going to characterize that versus Grindr, that's how I would describe it. In Europe, there are Hornet and Gay Romeo, and an oldie that's not very popular these days was Gaydar, Gaydar. And those are the kind of primary hookup apps where the expectation is that you're looking for sex. And I want to make clear that you don't have to use them with that in mind. I'm an outlier on those sites. I make it clear in my profile, not that most people read profiles, that I'm not looking for what I call fast food sex. I'm really more interested in chatting and dating than I am in hooking up. And I act accordingly. And sometimes I'll get people who are like, well, what are you doing on here if you don't want to have sex? I'm not saying I don't want to have sex. I'm saying I don't want to have sex until I know someone. And I think I can get to know them on here. The good news is those who are like-minded will stick around with someone like me who likes to chat. Those who want to meet someone and go to bed 30 minutes later, and that's an extreme, will quickly drop off. So it's a kind of a self-selection process. But my only point is, if you're not interested in hooking up, don't think that those apps aren't for you. You can use them the way I use them. I've met quite a number of my friends on Scruff and other meetup apps without ever going to bed with them or not going to bed with them until after we dated for a while. There's a demarcation between, or at least historically and traditionally, between these hookup apps and the more dating-oriented apps like Match.com and OkCupid, and until recently, at least to a certain extent, Tinder. Other ones are Hinge and Bumble. Those are apps where they want you to pay a certain fee and they try to line you up with someone who has been pre-selected according to the various criteria you each give the app, and they tell you that you're right for each other, and sometimes you are and more often you aren't. What I'm finding, however, is that increasingly a lot of people on those apps also want to have sex. So there's a blending or a bleeding of the way the hookup apps and the dating apps operate. And the worse than that is the fact that I am seeing, for me, and maybe because I tend to self-select younger men, 10 or 20 years younger than me in their 50s or 60s, and sometimes even younger. I get hit up by people in their 20s where I'm not interested, and their 30s where I start to be. But whenever a good-looking younger guy hits me up, as often as not, I find out it's someone wanting a sugar daddy, or it's someone who's really preying on the interest of older men in younger men. And these days, a lot of them are bots and trolls and a preponderance of cybercurrency, cryptocurrency traders. I don't know what they think I'm going to do. Do they expect that I'm going to give all my saved net worth and ask them to trade it for me? I really don't get it. But there are a lot of people who will, within a couple of minutes of beginning to chat, they'll start talking to me about, are you familiar with cryptocurrency? I'm like, yes, I'm familiar with it. I worked on Wall Street for 20 years. I am quite knowledgeable about finance, and I don't really need anybody to help me with that. Thank you very much. And they quickly lose interest. So I guess my point is, however, that what were dating apps are now being populated by a lot of maybe insincere actors. And it is really increasingly hard to find a real person. The interesting fact is I meet lots of real people on the hookup apps. It's just that more often than not, they'd like to have sex early on, and I don't. So that's my dilemma. Go someplace where I'll meet real people, but then have to face the unlikelihood of them wanting to chat and get to know each other first before having sex, or to go to a dating app, which ends up not so much being successful as a dating app, but as a place for scam artists to try to find me. Here it is. I have probably a dozen of these things on my phone. I don't want to spend too much time on them. Every once in a while, I do find a real person and have a real date out of it. In fact, last night, someone on Scruff hit me up yesterday. He wasn't looking for sex either. He was a 37-year-old man of Middle Eastern extraction who was visiting San Diego from Montreal, and he was just looking for company. And so we agreed to meet up for dinner. And in the end, we were invited by a group that didn't end up materializing to show up for a sunset picnic on Black's Beach in San Diego, where I live. And the two of us went there and did not end up finding any of the others, but we had quite a nice time at sunset on the beach at the base of 300-foot cliffs in San Diego while having a picnic dinner. So I think you can't avoid dealing with apps. I also think you have to realize that the likelihood of finding your one and only on an app is probably not very high, and you just have to look at it as part of your menu, of your diet. The other thing you need to do is to find real life venues. As I said, sports leagues, activity, meetup groups. Apparently there's a group called Couch Surfers, where when you're traveling, you can meet up with other people who are traveling for gay social interaction. So to kind of blend a diet of these non-dating, non-sexual, more activity-oriented apps and organizations with apps online, which are all about meeting, whether for sex or not. We're in a very complicated era. It's not easy to meet people. In the end, one has to become comfortable with oneself and find a way to be happy being alone until such time as you hopefully do meet your one and only. This has been Mike Balaban. I hope this has been helpful. If you have any other thoughts or secret ways to use the dating apps and the hookup apps, please share them in the comments section. We're about to hit 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. So if you haven't already, please subscribe and let some of your friends know. Once you get beyond 1,000, apparently the opportunities begin to multiply with YouTube, and I'd like to take advantage of them. Thank you so much. Mike Balaban, BAMMER and me.